If there's anybody in the booth or not. There we go. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day outside, and it has certainly been a wonderful Sunday in this building. I thoroughly enjoyed the message this morning, and I hope you got as much out of it or more than maybe what we expected in what might be considered a not so traditional Sunday morning sermon. But I thought it met the expectations of a Sunday morning sermon and then some. I like the fact that many times in Michael's messages, there's always a segue coming into what we're discussing or what we're going to discuss. So, in keeping with, I guess, what we talked about and listened to in the sermon this morning, comments on that discussion going forward before we get deeply into class. And somewhere I moved my note for oh, here it is right in front of me. The Cawson Street Church of Christ vision statement: to be a Christ-centered family where every person is valued. What do you think about that? You remember we've in recent weeks talked about how important it is to feel loved and appreciated. And when we walk into those doors, we expect to be greeted with love. And no one should ever go out that door feeling that I was invisible. They didn't even notice me. Because our mission has always been, and we're reemphasizing this, to be a Christ-centered family where every person is valued. Every person. There should be no strangers coming into the door threshold of this building. Everyone who comes in here is someone of value, and we love them, one and all. As I listened to the message, there were two things that I thought about, and shortly after some discussion with you on this, we'll get into the material for this morning. I thought about vision and mission with regard to my own parents and yours. You're here today because your parents may not have presented it to you this way as you were growing up, but your parents had a vision and a mission for you. That's why you're here. And I know that my parents would always say to me, I want you to do better than your father and I did, and I want you to ensure that your children do even better than you. Is that not vision and mission? Certainly it is. It's a strategy going forward. And then I thought about the fact that Jesus, in spite of all the power that he had a vision and a mission. But he knew that without his children, without his church, he would not be able to achieve the goals of his vision and mission. And that was simple: to do what? Yes. When you're raising your precious children and you tell them this and that and this, they say, why? Because it's the right thing to do. Peggy says when you're raising your children and you're giving them instructions, you always hear, why? Why? And I guess as was pointed out in the little graph that was up there, why? So we even ask God, why? And God tells us why and how to get it done. So I really appreciate your attentiveness to the lesson this morning. And as we go forward with this, We certainly will continue to need your love, your support, and encouraging one another to ensure the growth of this church. Michael mentioned the establishment of this congregation in the early 1940s. And then my mind went back to the time of maybe 1945, 46, historically, when Brother Ollie Moore had come here to be the preacher. And Brother Moore had a vision. And you might think, well, what was it? What is it? Brother Moore had come here from Alaska, where he had met a man who served as one of our elders in later years in the military. And this young man by the name of John Whitehead told Brother Moore of a preacher vacancy here in Hopewell, Virginia, from Alaska. Brother Moore contacted the brethren here, and he ultimately ended up with the job. And one of the first things Brother Moore challenged the leadership in 1946 to do was evangelize the black community in this city and area. And because of that, the Davisville Church of Christ was established within a year. That's vision. He had a mission and how to get it done. He contacted Brother Marshall Keeble. And Brother Marshall Keeble, as a result of that conversation, sent Brother John R. Vonner and Brother Raymond Dunwood to Hopewell, Virginia, where a tent meeting was set up, and ultimately a debate between Brother Vonner and the man who was known as Wilton Cook, preaching at the Baptist church across the street. And they debated. At the end of the debate, Brother Cook said to the audience, "Everybody who wants to go to heaven, follow me." That all goes back to what? Somebody's vision. And the mission is already there. Go ye into all the world, not just Hopewell, all the world. Teach the gospel to every creature. That same mission exists today. So we don't need to be fearful or apprehensive going forward. The mission is still the same. What may change is how we get it done, because the world has changed. When we think about where we've been for the last 14, 15 months, COVID, post-COVID, there were plans that we did not know that we would need. The technology going forward, but it helped us to be where we are today. We're thankful. So we ask for your continued support as we go forward with this, for the Cawson Street Church to be a Christ-centered family where every person is valued. And as Mike closed out, he said, memorize, meditate, make known, pray, and get out of the way. Because there are going to be others behind you who are going to boogity, want to go faster. So don't worry, we won't leave you behind. We're not leaving anybody behind. Sister Jeffries. Did you hear that? Sister Judkins was in that audience when Brother Vonner challenged Wilton Cook. She was 10 years old, and she's still here, folks. And she's still doing what she committed to at that time. Thank you, Sister Judkins, for having the courage to walk out boldly against everything that you had been taught earlier and for your life. And by the way, I know my mother and father were in that group. I'm thankful that they had the courage to do likewise. Her whole family, pretty much. Absolutely. Okay? That's what vision can do. Reach out to places that we never thought we would be able to access. So we have much work to do. The harvest is what? Plentiful. The labors, not so much. But we can be. And this is how we achieve that and get it done. Okay? Thank you. And you'll hear more of this going forward. Any other questions on that before I move on? I know you're ready to move on. Okay, here we go. In quick summary, last week when we started with the subtopic under our regular heading of consider one another, Hebrews 10:24. Be considerate to one another, to stir up love and spirit. You remember we opened with this quote from the author who's unknown, and it said, don't wait for people to be friendly. Show them how. That's what we do. And really, it goes back to what we just said about the mission statement, to be a Christ-centered family where every person is valued, where every person feels that value. Because we know in our human nature, we love to be loved. And we want everyone who walks through those doors to be the recipient of our friendliness and our love. And we begin that by showing them how. We talked about going forward. We said being friendly, it first requires us to pay attention. We talked about Matthew 26:41. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus told his disciples to watch and pray. And we know that the account goes on to say, but when Jesus had returned, he found them what? Asleep. They weren't paying attention anymore. He found them sleeping. And Peter, James, and John had missed a priceless opportunity, a chance to comfort Christ at that moment, that time in his hour of travel. Are you and I dozing off when it comes to occasions and opportunities to serve Jesus by serving others? How many times do we actually overlook opportunities to serve others through Christ? You remember we went on and we talked about the book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, and the fact that he says the principal form that the work of love takes is attention. Attention. Life's best moments are the times when we momentarily lose ourselves in caring for another. But before you can be considerate, you must first develop a consciousness of the other people around you. And there are people there who have needs. We went on from there and we talked about the fact that the essence of marriage, we talked about going toward the close, and the essence of marriage and parenting and friendship is giving others your attention. In our human relationships, it's important that we give others attention. The basis of ministry and shepherding is less concern for self and more concern for others. Whether we're at home, at work, or play, you cannot be your best without social awareness. And there are people among us who are oblivious to this. They just simply are so self-absorbed that other people around them become invisible. They're unaware of the words that they allow to come out of their mouth, but it originates in the heart, right? They're unaware of the words that come out and the deeds that they do that hurt other people around them. They're insensitive to the struggles of people around them. And moreover, they seem to not display any inducement to change. Something happened to them. I remind myself often that yes, we're human. In many ways, we're broken. But as God's children, as members of his church, we should not be as broken. We're human and we're frail. We have flaws, but we must learn to overcome those as God's children. And when we ignore people's pain and deny our accountability, things don't turn out very well. We mentioned that history's worst injuries and atrocities resulted from a combination of indifference and lack of attention. We talked about heartlessness. Heartlessness is dangerous to you and it's demeaning to others. Jesus illustrated this spiritual condition in the parable of the sower. When the heart is unfruitful, the problem is inattention. Hard-heartedness is to God's word what hard ground is to seed, an obstacle, a barrier for growth and change. Yeah, yes, Peggy. You remember last week, I actually made a comment referencing that. I can't love you until I first love whom? Me. I've got to love and understand me. I can't say I love the Lord and not love you. We just can't. We sing the song, the love of God, and love God. And until we truly love God, we won't be able to love other people. We won't be able to see the needs, the hurt, the pain that other people experience. The Bible tells us in 1 John 3:17-18, and I get the feeling that might have been in one of Mike's notes for this morning. I thought I wrote it down. At any rate, it says, but if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed, in truth, in action. Love is more than the words. Yes, Danny? That's what I was going to say. The word love has been thrown around so easily, and to where 90% of the time it's lost its meaning. You can just say it, but if you don't really mean it, then it doesn't really mean anything. Absolutely. It's more than just those four letters. It goes far beyond that. We must truly understand how to love and how to express that. And it is not closing our eyes to the pain and the needs of others. We also talked about in a subtopic, be friendly, greet one another. When you encounter people, give them the gift of your attention from the start. You see, you only get one time to make a what? Say it again. You get one opportunity to make a first impression. If you blow that, I'm not saying you won't recover. Boy, it's going to be hard. Let the first impression be genuine with love. Paul urged the Romans in Romans chapter 16, he urged them not to neglect the duty of greeting one another. Is that confined strictly to the confines of this building? What do you do when you see each other in the grocery store? Maybe across the aisle somewhere. I realize that I don't expect you to jump over groceries and knock people out of the way to speak. But if you can just, hey, hey, I was in a restaurant a week ago meeting a coworker, and while we were sitting there, we noticed another guy come in that we used to work with, and all of us are retired. And I kept yelling, hey, Daryl, Daryl, Daryl. Well, Daryl never answered or acknowledged. So eventually, Daryl's wife came and sat beside him, and I called Daryl again. And his wife pointed that the other guy, Lee, and I were trying to get his attention. She brought him over to our table. Now, Daryl's older than me, and sometimes health conditions change us. She said it took him a minute, but he realized who we were. And he called both of us by our first names eventually. She was so pleased and excited. Consider one another. She said, Melvin, would you write your phone number down on a piece of paper, yours and Lee's? And on some days when he's a little lost, I'd like to call you all and just let him talk to you on the phone. Okay? Yes, babe. The Lord is telling us, if your faith is true, put it into action. Absolutely. And remember, you may not get another opportunity, right? Take advantage of the first one that you get. I wanted to share a story, and it was about a preschooler who was on a late night flight. And the gentleman who's telling the story says, on that flight home, a little girl greeted every passenger as she made her way down the aisle. Her mother eventually got up to retrieve her, and as she carried her daughter back to her seat, the grinning little girl waved bye to everyone as her mother took her past. And I just had to smile. That was just so awesome. The man says you never saw so many smiles. In the twinkling of an eye, a plane full of grumpy adults was transformed into a jet full of jumbo smiles. And that from the heart of a little girl. You know, maybe sometimes we need to reawaken the inner child in each of us to remember how we can present ourselves to other people. That little girl didn't realize the value of saying hi, hi, hi to everyone. And as her mother picked her up to carry her back to the seat, maybe she really thought she was leaving, but it was bye, bye. And those things are important. When we think about the experiences with our own children, with our own grandchildren, with our friends, and just those little moments of speaking. So don't ever underestimate the power of a gracious greeting. A warm welcome that sets others at ease is more kind. It's more than kind. It's obedience to God's will. A welcoming kiss is holy because it is doing spiritual work. The same can be said of a hug or handshake or even a simple hello. Sacred business is underway when your soul connects with another soul. And I'm kind of reminded here of something that was said to me last week, and you can comment on it one way or not, but this is a quote. You get more bear with honey than buckshot. Come on, somebody explain that to me. You get more bear with honey than buckshot. Anybody hunting? And I'm not just talking about an actual good bear. I'm talking about even in our interactions with each other. You get more bear with honey than buckshot. Thank you to the person that shared that to be brought forward today. You know, the main reason visitors do not return to a church, the lack of a warm, loving reception. They may be ignored altogether, or the welcome may have seemed artificial and insincere. At any rate, on a gut level, they did not feel loved or valued. Has that happened here? I venture to say it's probably happened in many places. But if we're going to grow, we have to be sure that we are a Christ-centered family where every person is valued. Every person. Biblical worship and sound teaching are necessary for church growth. But so is a friendly culture. A cold, unfeeling church conveys little of Jesus' love. And I think Mike said this morning in his message as well from Matthew 7:16. Jesus said, "You will know them by their fruits." What kind of fruit are we displaying from our individual selves? You will know them by their fruit. And the fruit of love in its most basic form is a simple, sincere greeting. That's not hard, is it? Not at all. How many people choose to change their place of work because of a lack of human connection? People just don't seem to care. They don't notice you. I remember I had a job, and I may as well say, the vision campaign for the company, they put us through some training, and then every employee received a cup, a coffee cup. And on the cup it had DACA. Does anyone care anymore? Do we? DACA. Does anyone care anymore? How many husbands work late and dread opening the door of their own house for want of a warm embrace and a word of appreciation? How many teenagers find their identity in a gang or some other group because of lack of parental love and attention? What they're experiencing is detachment, and detachment is a defense mechanism for protecting wounded self-esteems. If you do not care about me, they are saying inside, why should I care about you? People desperately want to know that they matter. People want to know that they are valued. When we look at much of the violence that takes place in our nation, when we look at the violence in our schools, it's because some child was bullied to the point that they were driven over the edge because they didn't feel valued. I'm not justifying their response. That's wrong. But they were driven to it, and nobody seemed to notice or care. People desperately want to know that they matter. And this is why few things are as painful and discouraging as being unnoticed and inside feeling unloved. People in the service industry know this feeling very well. You know, when you go into a store or a restaurant or whatever, the lady behind the lunch counter, the cabbie behind the wheel of the cab, the clerk behind the register are viewed by social climbers as neighbors with families and feelings. And we go back to the golden rule, says to treat others how you would like to be treated. If you were in their circumstances, how would you like to be treated? Ask yourself this question. How would it feel to be treated like you're not worth noticing? What would that treatment do to your self-esteem? And if you routinely treat others this way, what do you think that does to your soul? Jesus, in the history through the Bible, is famous for loving the marginalized people of the first century world, women and children, the diseased and the disabled, tax collectors and sinners. All of these people were received by Jesus in a way that made them feel not only welcome, but also special. When we're too busy or preoccupied or lazy or petty to affirm other people, we're not following Jesus' example. We're not following Jesus' footsteps. To be Christ's disciples is to notice and care for people. Why do we do this? We do it, we try to be friendly because it is what God requires of us. And it has to be done in a timely manner. And I don't know if the clock will allow me to finish this, but I'll close with this story. A man by the name of Jimmy, and Jimmy worked as a district pharmacy supervisor. Jimmy trained pharmacists to greet customers within 15 seconds of their arrival at the counter. Some pharmacists avoid eye contact because they're insecure or because they're busy, maybe filling orders. But regardless of the reason, it is seldom the right thing to do. And you and I can put ourselves in the place of those customers. Acknowledging the customer's presence, Jimmy said, acknowledge their presence. It buys time and goodwill, and it shows them that you see them, that you care. It sets the customer at ease and makes him feel important, even though they may have to wait for a moment. Even if we're too busy wherever we are, a wave, a wink, a smile, or a nod says, "You matter to me. I can't serve you right now, but I respect you and want to help you as soon as possible." Jimmy is a Christian, and Jimmy believes the same is true about the church. How do we feel? Remember the anxious feeling you felt when you started a new job or moved to a new town? Fear, apprehension, those are normal responses. Though it's hard to leave, familiar friends and handshakes and hugs on the other end can lessen the pain. When people smile at you and call your name, it reinforces your feelings of worth and value. When people avoid eye contact and keep their distance, you wonder, what's wrong with me? You didn't say what's wrong with them, what's wrong with me? You feel dejected, maybe angry. Few things are as agonizing as being overlooked and seen as being invisible. Next week, Lord willing, we will begin with the subject of still under being friendly, but being friendly, think small. Doesn't have to be big. Be friendly, think small. It's a start. That's the lesson today. Thank you for your time. Go forth and remember, we are to be a Christ-centered family where every person is valued. Thank you. You're welcome.